My name is Aiden Mitchell, 34 years old, and my life in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, has always unfolded in such a steady manner that it borders on boredom. I work as a golf course maintenance employee at a suburban club in the city, a job that's not glamorous at all, but it's stable. My wife, Hannah Mitchell, 29 years old, is a gentle, skillful woman to the point where I sometimes wonder how I got so lucky. She works at a small flower shop on the main street where she arranges vibrant bouquets with a smile always on her lips. We live in a small 2-story house with a backyard full of greenery and a garage crammed with miscellaneous items. No children, no drama. Just evenings spent watching TV, eating simple dinners and cuddling up to sleep. A simple, peaceful life. At least that's what I used to think. But everything started to change one late night when I jolted awake. It was around 2 in the morning. The first sound I heard was a faint creak, as if someone was trying to open a door without waking anyone. My heart pounded, not out of fear, but out of the strangeness. I lay still, eyes half open, and recognized the familiar silhouette of Hannah sneaking out of bed. She moved cautiously, her feet in socks so they made no sound, but I could see her shoulders slightly hunched as if trying to maintain absolute silence. She was wearing a thin cotton nightgown, her hair loose, and in the dim darkness from the streetlight filtering through the curtains, she looked like a ghost. I said nothing, just lay there pretending to sleep, my heart beating faster. Hannah and I have been married for 5 years and she's never done this before. She always sleeps soundly, curled up next to me like a kitten. But tonight something was off. I heard the bedroom door close gently and then I sat up, my bare feet touching the cold wooden floor. I slipped out of bed, opening the door a small crack, just enough to see the hallway. Hannah was heading toward the kitchen, her steps light as air. She stopped at the fridge, opened it, and took something. I couldn't see clearly, but it seemed like a bag of leftover food from dinner. Then she turned and headed toward the back door. My heart suddenly tightened. The back door led to the garage, and from the garage there was a path down to the basement, a place we rarely used just for storing old stuff. I crept after her, keeping my distance to avoid being noticed. My heart was pounding so hard I feared she might hear it. Through the crack in the kitchen door, I saw Hannah open the back door, the night wind rushing in with the damp earth smell from the garden. She stepped out, bag in hand, and disappeared into the garage. I waited a few seconds, then followed stealthily. The garage was pitch black with only faint moonlight seeping through a small window. I saw her silhouette at the basement entrance, an old wooden staircase leading down. She paused for a moment, looking around as if afraid someone was following, then descended and closed the door behind her. I stood there in the darkness, my hand gripping the armrest of an old car seat tightly. What the hell was going on? Hannah isn't the type to seek adventure or hide things. She's the woman I love, the one who always tells me everything from work stories to her quirky dreams. But tonight something wasn't right. I returned to bed, lying awake until morning, my mind swirling with all sorts of thoughts. The next morning the sun rose, and Baton Rouge was as hot and humid as ever. Hannah got up early as usual, kissed me and said, "I'm off to work, love. Don't forget to eat breakfast." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with no sign of anything unusual. I nodded, trying to smile back, but inside it felt like a stone was weighing on my heart. I pretended to sleep a bit longer, waiting until I heard her car leave the driveway. Then I jumped up, put on jeans and a t-shirt, and headed straight down to the basement. Our basement is a damp, dusty place. The weak light from the overhead bulb shone down on old cardboard boxes, broken furniture, and some Christmas decorations from last year. I checked everywhere, flipping through boxes, looking under tables and chairs, even feeling the walls for anything unusual. Nothing. Everything was exactly as it had been the last time I was down here a few months ago. No changes, just a thick layer of dust proving no one had touched anything. I sighed, wondering if I had imagined it all. But the memory of last night was crystal clear. Hannah had gone down here with a bag of food. Why? The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. Our peaceful life, weekend afternoons strolling in the park, dinners she cooked with the scent of flowers from the shop, suddenly felt fragile. I didn't want to doubt my wife, but my intuition told me something was wrong. I decided I had to investigate. After work, I drove to a nearby electronics store and bought a small camera, the battery-powered kind that connects to your phone. It was tiny, easy to hide, and recorded clearly in the dark. At home, I waited until Hannah was in the shower, then sneaked down to the basement. I installed it in the corner of the ceiling near the entrance, hidden behind a stack of cardboard boxes. From that angle, it could capture the entire basement without being noticed. The following days were hell. I tried to act normal in front of Hannah, laughing, hugging her, but at night I lay awake, waiting. Some nights she slept peacefully and I breathed a sigh of relief. But then, on the third night, I heard the door creak open softly again. This time I didn't follow. I let the camera do its job. The next morning when Hannah left for work, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the app on my phone. My heart was pounding like a drum. I fast-forwarded through the recordings from last night. And then, I froze. On the screen around 1 a.m, Hannah appeared at the top of the basement stairs. She was in her nightgown holding a bag of food, just like the time I had followed her. Her steps were light, but her face was heavy as if carrying some burden. She stopped in the middle of the basement, looked around for a moment, then bent down and gently lifted the old floor rug. Underneath, a hidden door. A wooden door cleverly camouflaged under the concrete floor with a small handle. She opened it. A faint creak echoed in the video, and stepped down, disappearing from the frame. The camera only captured up to there, but a few minutes later she returned empty-handed, closed the door, flipped the rug back down, and went up the stairs. Her face at that moment, tired, sad, as if she had just done something heartbreaking. I sat motionless, my hand holding the phone, trembling. A hidden basement within the basement. We bought this house 4 years ago, and I've never known about that. Who built it? Why? And Hannah? What was she doing down there? Bringing food to whom? Or what? Dark thoughts flooded in. Was she hiding a lover? No, Hannah isn't that type. I stood up, pacing the kitchen, my heart burning. I wanted to rush down to the basement right then, flip up the rug and open that door. But I held back. I didn't want to destroy our marriage over a misunderstanding. But the restlessness wouldn't subside. I decided I had to go down there, had to find answers. If not, I'd go crazy. I opened the garage door and cold wind rushed in, carrying the damp earth smell. The stairs down to the basement creaked under my feet like whispering warnings. The basement was still the same, dusty, dark, with old cardboard boxes stacked up. I stopped in the middle of the room, my heart pounding. The old floor rug lay there, harmless as always. But I knew the secret beneath it. I knelt down, my hand touching the edge of the rug, flipping it up slowly. Underneath, the wooden door revealed itself, simple, old, with a rusted iron handle. It blended so well with the concrete floor that without knowing, no one would notice. I swallowed, my hand gripping the handle tightly. It was ice cold. I pulled it up and the creak echoed in the confined space. A small staircase appeared, sloping downward into pitch blackness. Cold air wafted up, carrying a musty smell and the scent of people. I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped down cautiously, one step at a time. My heart pounded like a drum, cold sweat breaking out despite the cool air. The staircase was only about 10 steps, leading to a low-ceilinged room where the ceiling was less than a meter above my head. The weak light from the flashlight swept across. Rough concrete walls, a damp dirt floor, and in the corner a simple folding bed with a thin blanket. On the bed, 2 huddled figures sat, their gaunt faces under the dim light, tired eyes looking up at me. I froze. Not strangers, not some horrific secret. It was Roger Hayes and Marlene Hayes, Hannah's biological parents, the ones I thought had died 3 years ago in the big fire in Baton Rouge. Roger, who used to be a real estate tycoon with expensive suits and an arrogant smile. Now he was emaciated with unkempt beard, wearing an old wool sweater. Marlene, who used to be an elegant lady with sparkling jewelry, was now just a weary old woman, her white hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. They sat there next to a small table with a few leftover breadcrumbs and a water bottle. Both of them startled when they saw me, their eyes widening in terror. Roger opened his mouth as if to say something, but then bowed his head silent. Marlene clutched her husband's hand tightly, her shoulders trembling. I stood there frozen for a long time, my feet rooted to the spot. A mix of pity and astonishment surged within me. They were alive? Why were they here in the secret basement under my house? Had Hannah been hiding them? My heart ached. These were my in-laws, the ones who had once looked down on me because of my lowly job as a golf course maintenance worker. Now they were huddled like refugees. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, why are you two down here?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Please tell me what's going on." They didn't answer. Roger stood up and said, "Let's go upstairs, we need to talk." He helped Marlene to her feet and we went up the stairs. I led them into the living room where weak sunlight filtered through the curtains. They sat down on the sofa, still bowing their heads, saying nothing. I looked at them, my mind in turmoil. Roger looked like he had aged 10 years, Marlene trembling like a withered leaf. I didn't know where to start. Why were they here? Did Hannah know? Of course she did. The camera had recorded her bringing food down. I took out my phone and called Hannah. "Come home right now," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I found your parents in the basement." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, then her voice trembled. "Aiden, I'll be right there." I hung up and sat down in the chair opposite Roger and Marlene. The atmosphere in the living room was heavy, with only the ticking of the clock. I looked at them. "Mr. and Mrs. Explain. Why are you here? Everyone thinks you're dead." Roger looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "Aiden, we didn't want to drag you into this." But then he fell silent again. Marlene sobbed quietly. I waited, my heart burning. 15 minutes later, the sound of Hannah's car echoed outside. She burst into the house, her face pale. When she saw her parents, she burst into tears and ran to hug them. "Mom, Dad, Aiden." She looked at me, her eyes full of tears. I stood up and pulled her to sit down. "Explain, Hannah. Everything." She wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and began to tell. Her voice trembled but was clear. "Aiden, I'm sorry. My parents didn't die in that fire. It was faked. They were being hunted by a drug cartel. My dad used to be a big businessman, Hayes Group, investing in real estate, but they approached him wanting to use the company to launder drug money. Dad refused, wouldn't cooperate. They threatened him, and then they started hunting them down. Mom and Dad had to sell the entire company, fake their deaths in the fire to escape and protect their lives." I sat silently, listening to every word. Hannah continued. "For years, Mom and Dad lived in hiding, moving from place to place. No home, no friends. Recently, Dad had heart problems, Mom has severe arthritis, and old age has worn them out. They had nowhere else to go, so they came to me, begging for temporary shelter. I couldn't turn my back on my own flesh and blood, Aiden. They're my parents, but I didn't dare tell you because I was afraid you wouldn't agree. The relationship between you and my parents isn't very good. I was afraid you'd kick them out." Her words cut into my heart like a knife. I remembered clearly the early meetings with Roger and Marlene. They looked at me like I was beneath them, scorning my job. At the wedding, they even seated my parents in the back row, but now, seeing Hannah cry, her eyes pleading, I believed she wasn't lying. She was my wife, the most sincere woman I knew. But deep down, I knew this wasn't simple. A drug cartel, faking death. Why choose our house where it could be dangerous? And why had Hannah hidden it from me for so long? I looked at Roger and Marlene. They nodded in confirmation, but their eyes avoided mine. There was something they hadn't told yet. After that tearful conversation, I decided to agree to let Roger and Marlene stay temporarily. Though my heart was still full of doubts, seeing Hannah cry until her eyes were red, I couldn't bear to refuse. She was my wife, and after all, they were her flesh and blood. I didn't want to hurt her anymore. "All right," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You two don't need to stay in that cold basement anymore. I'll arrange a guest room for you." Hannah looked up, her eyes lighting up with gratitude. "Thank you, Aiden. I love you." Roger and Marlene also nodded, their voices trembling with thanks, but I just nodded back, not saying much. In my mind, everything was still a tangled mess. That evening, the first meal with the extended family was awkward. Hannah cooked my favorite stewed ribs, but the atmosphere at the table was heavy. Roger tried to make small talk about the weather in Baton Rouge. Marlene complimented her daughter's cooking skills, but I only responded briefly. Hannah looked at me pleadingly, and I tried to smile to reassure her. After dinner, we watched TV for a while, but no one was focused. Roger and Marlene went to bed early, saying they were tired. Hannah hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for giving them a chance." I kissed her forehead, but my heart felt weighed down. When Hannah fell into a deep sleep beside me, her breathing steady, I slipped out of bed and went down to the living room. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating the cold wooden floor. I sat silently on the sofa, my mind swirling with everything I'd heard that day. The image of Roger and Marlene, two people who had once stepped out from a world of luxury with extravagant parties and expensive cars, now hiding in the cold basement under my house, was something I couldn't comprehend. They had once been prominent business people in Baton Rouge, owners of Hayes Group, a massive investment and real estate company. I clearly remembered the newspaper articles about them. Roger signing million-dollar deals, Marlene organizing charity events with high society. Now they were huddled like ghosts, dependent on the leftover food Hannah brought down every night. Life's twists and turns were truly strange. I closed my eyes, trying to push away that image, but my mind began drifting to the past, to the early days when I met the Hayes family. Memories I had tried to bury now flooded back like a tide, sweeping away the fragile peace. It all started 6 years ago when I met Hannah at the flower shop where she worked. It was a rainy afternoon in Baton Rouge. I stopped in to buy flowers for my mother's birthday. Hannah was behind the counter with a radiant smile and her hair loose, arranging vibrant bouquets of red roses. We chatted, and after just a few dates, I knew I was in love with her. Hannah was gentle and skillful, always knowing how to make me laugh after tiring days at the golf course. But when she mentioned her family, her voice hesitated a bit. "My parents, they're a bit strict," she said. I didn't mind at the time. I just thought it was normal. Until the day I was invited to the Hayes home. I remember that day vividly. It was a weekend evening with a rare cool breeze in Baton Rouge. I drove my old pickup truck to their large house in the suburbs, a sprawling villa with lush green gardens and a swimming pool sparkling under the lights. I wore my cleanest shirt, holding a bouquet that Hannah liked, but as soon as I stepped inside, I felt out of place. Roger Hayes was waiting at the door, tall in an expensive gray suit, shaking my hand superficially with a weak grip, as if he didn't want to touch me. "Aiden Mitchell, right?" he said, his voice deep but laced with sarcasm. "Hannah said you do golf course maintenance? Sounds interesting. Working outdoors keeps you healthy." His tone was half contemptuous, half mocking, as if my job was something lowly, not worth mentioning. His gaze swept over me from head to toe, making me feel like I didn't belong in this world of money and status. Marlene appeared from the kitchen wearing an elegant long dress, her necklace sparkling under the chandelier. She smiled, but it was a fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Aiden, nice to meet you," she said, her voice sweet but cold. Hannah chose someone sensible. She's always wise. but her eyes said more than her words. Her precious daughter should have married someone of higher status, a lawyer or businessman, not a golf course maintenance guy from a working-class family. She asked a few questions about my family, but her tone was like an interrogation, and when I talked about my parents, my dad a mechanic, my mom a homemaker, she just nodded and changed the subject to their European travels. Hannah sat beside me, holding my hand under the table, trying to soothe me, but I could sense the tension. Dinner dragged on like torture, with elaborate French dishes I wasn't familiar with, and conversations about the stock market that I didn't understand. From that day on, my relationship with my in-laws was always strained. Every meeting, Roger would ask about my job with a sarcastic tone like, "How's the golf course? Lots of rain?" And Marlene always maintained a polite exterior, but her compliments always carried a hint of sarcasm. Hannah tried to bridge the gap, but I knew she was tired too. "My parents are just worried about me," she said. But I could sense it clearly. They didn't see me as a worthy son-in-law. In the days that followed, our home life changed. Roger and Marlene stayed in the spare room, rarely going out, mostly reading books or watching TV. Hannah took care of them attentively, bringing medicine and food. I tried to act normal, but every time I looked at Roger, the memories flooded back. The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. One evening, Hannah asked, "What's wrong with you? You look tired." I forced a smile. "Nothing." But inside, the memories cut like a knife. I needed time to process it all. The past wasn't easy to forget, and this conflict was tormenting me. One afternoon, while checking the irrigation system in the area of hole number 9, where the lush green grass stretched out under the golden sun of Baton Rouge, I unexpectedly ran into Noah Carter again. Noah was my childhood best friend. We grew up together in the old neighborhood by the Mississippi River. We used to play baseball after school, share teenage secrets, and promise to stay in touch forever. But life swept us away. I became a golf course maintenance worker while Noah pursued a career in law enforcement, now a detective at the Baton Rouge department. I hadn't seen him since my brother's funeral 3 years ago. Noah appeared on the walking path wearing a casual polo shirt, holding a golf club, looking like an amateur player. "Aiden Mitchell. Long time no see, buddy," he called out loudly with a wide smile. I looked up, surprised. "Noah, what are you doing here?" We hugged and patted each other's backs, laughing and chatting like old times. The encounter seemed coincidental. Noah said he was there to play golf with colleagues, but as we sat resting on a stone bench talking about the old days, the atmosphere gradually shifted. I told him about my simple life with Hannah, my job here, and he shared stories about minor cases at the precinct. But then, I casually mentioned my brother. "Do you remember Evan? It's been 3 years." Noah's eyes flickered, a quick blink, but I noticed it. He looked out at the grass, his voice lowering. "Yeah, Evan. He was a hero. Aiden, you know, I'm handling an old case, the death of Evan Mitchell 3 years ago." My heart skipped a beat. "An old case? You mean the car accident?" Noah nodded, glancing around as if afraid someone might overhear. "It's not just an accident, Aiden. The case has been reopened after federal agents discovered new evidence." I froze, my hand gripping the water bottle tightly. Noah continued, his voice low but clear, as if revealing a state secret. He said that Evan wasn't just an ordinary cop, as everyone thought. He was an undercover agent specializing in busting major drug rings in Louisiana. Evan's final mission before his death was to infiltrate Hayes Group, the corporation owned by Roger Hayes, my father-in-law, to investigate money laundering and drug trafficking activities. Hayes Group appeared to be a real estate investment firm on the surface, Noah explained, looking straight at me. But the feds suspected they were using the company to launder drug money. Evan was planted as an employee, gathering internal data, fake invoices, shady transfers. I sat motionless, my mind reeling. Hayes Group, Roger and Marlene, they had claimed they were being hunted because they refused to cooperate. But now Noah was telling a completely different story. Noah went on, his voice tense. During the infiltration, Evan collected a lot of data. Emails, financial records, proving Hayes Group's deep involvement. But before he could hand it over to his superiors, he was discovered. The cargo truck Evan was driving was rigged to explode on the highway, staged to look like an accident. No survivors. I felt blood rushing to my head, my ears ringing. I remembered that day clearly, the devastating news hitting like a thunderbolt, the charred truck, the unrecognizable body. But now Noah was saying it was murder? After the explosion, Noah continued, Roger and Marlene Hayes suddenly disappeared in a fire at their villa, presumed dead. The case was closed due to lack of evidence, no trace of them found and not enough proof to convict. But now, the feds have recovered new data from Evan's old hard drive, so the case is being reopened. We're investigating, but we lack concrete evidence to charge Roger and Marlene, and most importantly, the police have completely lost track of them. We don't know if they're alive or dead. I listened in stunned silence, feeling like someone had slapped me hard across the face. The final piece suddenly clicked into place in my mind, sharp and painful. My in-laws, Roger and Marlene, the people hiding in my house, eating and living alongside me and Hannah every day, could very well be the ones who eliminated my brother to cover their tracks. They weren't victims being hunted. They were the masterminds involved in drugs, and they killed Evan to hide it. Their story of faking death to escape now sounded like a scam. My heart pounded, cold sweat breaking out despite the warm afternoon sun. You're sure, Noah? I asked, my voice trembling. Noah nodded. Absolutely. The feds have evidence, but we need more to make arrests. If you know anything about the Hayes, tell me. I shook my head, trying to stay calm. I don't know. But inside, rage surged. They were in my house, smiling and talking with Hannah, while they might be the ones who killed Evan. When Noah left, patting my shoulder in consolation. Stay in touch, Aiden. And if you remember anything about Evan, call me. I stood motionless for a long time amid the lush green grass, my mind blank as if all thoughts had been sucked out. The afternoon breeze blew through, carrying the scent of fresh grass, but I felt nothing. Only the image of Evan, my brother, the family hero, laughing and playing in the old days remained. He had sacrificed for justice, and now the culprits might be sleeping peacefully under my roof. Tears rolled down my face without me realizing it. In my heart, there was only one sharp thought, like a knife. The justice my brother had traded his life for, now I had to reclaim it for him. I wouldn't let them get away. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel until they turned white. Everything around me was blurry, the streetlights, the vehicles. Only Noah's words echoed. Images from the past flooded back, each piece of memory making my heart tighten as if someone was squeezing it. Evan, my brother. The one I thought had passed away in a tragic accident now turned out to possibly be the victim of a dark conspiracy. And the culprits, Roger and Marlene, were right under my roof laughing and talking with Hannah as if nothing had happened. The mix of anger and pain made me grip the steering wheel tightly. The car speeding along the highway, wind whistling through the open window. I remembered Evan Mitchell, my brother who was 7 years older, the pride of the whole family. From childhood, Evan was the center of everything. We grew up in a small house in the suburbs of Baton Rouge with a backyard full of weeds and a garage crammed with Dad's miscellaneous items. My dad was a mechanic, my mom a homemaker. Life was simple but warm. Evan, with his jet black hair and radiant smile, was always the one leading me through everything. He taught me to fix a bike when I was just 6 years old. Hey kid, tighten this bolt, then pedal and see. Don't be afraid of breaking it, you can fix it. I followed his instructions and pedaled around the yard, grinning from ear to ear, and Evan clapped to cheer me on. He didn't just teach skills, but also perseverance, how not to give up. Then there were the afternoons in the park near home where Evan taught me to throw a baseball. He was the star of the school team with strong and accurate throws. "Keep your eyes on the ball, Aiden," he said, his voice warm. "And remember, you don't always win, but you have to try your best." I kept missing, but Evan never got angry. He just smiled, picked up the ball, and threw it back to me. When the neighborhood kids bullied me for being skinny and shy, Evan always stood up for me. Once a bigger kid bullied me at school. Evan appeared like a superhero, pulling me behind him and saying in a calm but firm voice, "Touch my brother and you'll regret it." The kid ran away and Evan turned to me, ruffling my hair. "Don't be afraid, kid. I'm here." In my eyes, Evan wasn't just a brother, he was a role model, a real hero. He was the ideal I wanted to emulate, smart, brave, calm, and always dreaming of becoming a law enforcer. From a young age, he loved reading books about police, watching detective movies, and dreaming of cleaning up the world. I remember evenings sitting on the porch under the Louisiana moonlight, Evan telling me about his dreams. "Aiden, this world is full of injustice. If we can't change the whole world, at least we can keep one corner cleaner." Those words imprinted deeply in my mind like a life motto. I clearly remember the day Evan joined the police force, the happiest day in our family memories. That was 10 years ago when he graduated from the police academy with outstanding achievements. The whole family gathered in the small living room with homemade cake and cheap beers. My dad teared up, patting his shoulder. "Son, I'm proud of you." Mom hugged him tightly, crying with joy. We laughed all evening, music playing from the old radio, and the atmosphere was so warm that I thought our family was the happiest in the world. Evan, in his new uniform with his badge shining, looked majestic and full of confidence. In the following years, Evan advanced quickly in the police department. I admired him, dreamed of being like him. Evan was the pillar of the family, the perfect brother, and I never thought I'd lose him. But then everything shattered on a heavy, rainy afternoon 3 years ago. I was at the golf course fixing the irrigation system under pouring rain when the phone rang. It was my dad, his voice trembling. "Your brother, Evan, had an accident." My heart seemed to stop. I rushed home, rain lashing my face through the open car window, my heart burning. The bad news hit. The vehicle Evan was driving exploded on the highway. Police reported no survivors. It was a horrific accident. A cargo truck suddenly exploded, fire erupting amid the rain. The media reported extensively. Police officer killed in traffic accident. But now, thanks to Noah, I know it wasn't an accident. It was murder. I still remember the moment my dad collapsed upon hearing the news, hand clutching his chest, face pale. Mom fainted on the spot. I had to help her up, tears mixing with the rain. At the morgue, I went with Dad to identify the body, but it was charred beyond recognition. Police said only the wedding ring and badge remained to verify identity. Dad stood silent, his hand trembling as he touched the bag of remains, then cried like a child. I hugged Dad, but my heart was shattered. Evan, my brother, the hero, now just ashes. The house afterward plunged into mourning. Mom lost sleep for months, sitting by the window looking out at the street, waiting as if Evan would return. She became emaciated, her eyes red from crying. Dad became much quieter, silently hanging Evan's photo on the corner wall in the living room. He abandoned the garage, sitting alone smoking, his eyes vacant. Our family was torn apart. I tried to be strong, caring for my parents, but every night I stayed awake, hugging his memorial photo tightly. I swore to live well in Evan's stead, work hard, care for my parents, and preserve his memory. But I never suspected that his death wasn't an accident, but a carefully calculated betrayal. Roger and Marlene, whom I once despised for their arrogance, now turned out to possibly be the culprits. They killed Evan to silence him, then faked their deaths to escape justice. The car stopped in front of the house, the yellowish streetlight illuminating the driveway. I sat in the car for a long time. Tears dried on my cheeks. Inside the house, warm light shone out. Hannah was cooking dinner, Roger and Marlene sitting in the living room. But now, everything had changed. I had to act. For Evan. For justice. I took a deep breath, wiped my face with my sleeve, and stepped out of the car. The night air in Baton Rouge was cool, carrying the damp smell from the nearby Mississippi River, but my heart was burning like fire. I couldn't let Roger and Marlene continue living peacefully under this roof while they might be the ones who had taken my brother's life. But I also couldn't act impulsively. I needed evidence, a plan. I walked into the house trying to keep a normal expression. Hannah ran out from the kitchen, her skirt dusted with flour, hugging me tightly. "You're home." I was so worried. I called, but you didn't answer. I kissed her forehead, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sorry, love, work was chaotic. The food smells great." Roger called loudly from the living room. "Aiden, how was today? Join us for dinner?" I nodded, forcing a smile, but his eyes, now that I looked closely, had something furtive, as if hiding something. Marlene sat beside him, knitting, smiling politely. Dinner proceeded as usual, but each bite stuck in my throat. I observed them, wondering, do they know I'm suspicious? The following days were hell. I pondered continuously, my mind swirling between anger and hesitation. During the day at the golf course, I mowed the grass mechanically, forgetting to check the water pipes. Colleagues asked, but I just shook my head. At home, I maintained a normal attitude, helping Hannah set the table, asking Roger about his health, even watching TV with Marlene. But every night I stayed awake, lying beside the soundly sleeping Hannah, my mind replaying Noah's words. They could be the masterminds. Bad premonitions surged. Their appearance wasn't as simple as they claimed. They weren't victims, they were fugitives. And Hannah, my wife, was probably innocent, but she was being used. I couldn't stay silent anymore. If I didn't act, justice for Evan would be buried forever. After 3 sleepless days, I decided. That morning I called Noah. "I need to meet you. Something important about Evan." We met at a suburban coffee shop where few people passed by. Noah sat opposite, his eyes serious. "What's up, Aiden? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath, looked around to make sure no one was listening, then told everything about the camera, the secret basement, discovering Roger and Marlene were alive and now they were staying at my house. "They're there, Noah. Right in my house. Hannah hid them, thinking they were being hunted, but after what you said, I think they're the ones who killed Evan." Noah listened, stunned, his face turning pale. He sat silent for a few seconds, his hand gripping the coffee cup so tightly I feared it would break. "God, Aiden. The 2 suspects missing for 3 years are right in a peaceful suburban house in Baton Rouge. This is a major breakthrough." He immediately pulled out his phone, calling the federal unit handling Evan's case, his voice urgent. "Boss, new info. The Hayes are alive, and we have an insider." They agreed quickly via conference call. A federal agent's voice came from the speaker. "Aiden, you've done well reporting this. But we can't arrest yet. We need concrete evidence. Confessions, documents for the court to approve a warrant. If we act hastily, they could deny it." I nodded, determined. "I agree to cooperate. I'll gather from the inside." Noah instructed me in detail, not to confront them directly, to avoid alerting them. "You have to act normal, Aiden. We'll install devices." That afternoon, Noah came to the house disguised as an old friend visiting, carrying a camouflaged bag. Hannah welcomed him cheerfully with no suspicion. When she went to the kitchen to make drinks, Noah and I proceeded with the prepared plan. Under Noah's guidance, I installed hidden cameras and recording devices throughout the house. Tiny cameras concealed behind bookshelves, under coffee tables, even in plant pots. Recording devices attached to ceiling lights and sofas. "All data is encrypted and transmitted straight to the investigation center," Noah whispered. "You just need to act normal. If they say anything suspicious, we'll have it." I nodded, my heart pounding. After installation, Noah patted my shoulder. "You're brave. For Evan." When he left, I sat alone, my heart mixed. I was spying on my wife's parents, people Hannah loved, but for justice, I had to do it. In the first days, the data segments only contained everyday conversations. I received reports from Noah via encrypted messages. Roger and Marlene talking about the weather, health, even praising Hannah's cooking. Nothing yet, Noah messaged. I waited, my heart burning. At night, I lay awake, listening to every sound from the guest room. Hannah noticed the change. "What's wrong with you? You've been quiet lately." I hugged her. "Just tired, love." But then one late night, everything changed. I was dozing fitfully when the phone buzzed. A message from Noah. "Something." Check the new file. I slipped to the living room, opened the laptop, and watched the recording. In the video around midnight, Roger and Marlene sat on the sofa under dim light. Roger blurted out, his voice hoarse. "Marlene, do you remember the plan back then? With that agent Evan Mitchell. We had to do it to silence him or Hayes' group would be ruined." Marlene replied, her voice trembling. "Don't mention it, Roger." But yes, there was no other way. Rigging the truck explosion, clean, no traces. Roger smirked. "Yeah, and now his little brother, Aiden, the fool doesn't know anything, even taking care of the very masterminds who killed his brother. What a joke of fate." Marlene nodded, her eyes fearful. "Shut up if Hannah hears." I sat motionless, my heart seeming to stop. That was a direct confession. They admitted to murdering Evan. Rage surged, my hands trembling. I called Noah immediately. "Did you hear?" "That's evidence," Noah replied. "Yes, clear confession. But we still need physical evidence. The court might dismiss it as a joke without specifics." I nodded, resolute. I would wait. A few days later, the opportunity came. In another video from the camera hidden behind the bookshelf, Roger opened an old safe, the one he had brought with him when they arrived, to find his heart medicine. The camera captured it clearly. Inside the safe, besides the medicine, there was a thick file with the Hayes Group logo and an old access card with Evan Mitchell printed clearly on it. Roger flipped through the file, muttering to himself, "If anyone finds this stuff, we're done for. Money laundering invoices, lists of drug partners, all here." He closed the safe, sighed, unaware that the camera was recording. I sent the file to Noah right away. He called back after a few hours. "The feds have verified it. The file matches the missing accounting documents from the laundering case 3 years ago. The access card is Evan's, used to infiltrate the company. Combined with the confession, we have enough. Conspiracy to murder, money laundering, drug trafficking." The investigators concluded there was sufficient legal basis to request a federal arrest warrant. Noah informed me the next morning, his voice low. "Aiden, the warrant will be approved. This time they won't escape." I stood silent by the living room window, watching the early sunlight filter through the thin mist in the garden. Birds chirped, a light wind rustled the leaves, but my heart was strangely calm. No more fierce hatred, only the serenity of someone about to see justice served for his brother. Evan would smile from above. I was ready to face Hannah and everything that was coming. After the federal agency approved the arrest warrant, the plan was implemented immediately within 48 hours to avoid any leaks. Noah called me that afternoon, his voice urgent but calm. "Aiden, the warrant is in hand. We'll move tomorrow morning. Don't do anything out of the ordinary. Keep your routine as if nothing's happening." I nodded over the phone, my heart pounding. "I understand. But Hannah, how will she take it?" Noah sighed. "You'll have to explain afterward. For now, focus on the plan. The task force will surround your house at 9 a.m. after Hannah leaves for work. Leave the house as usual, but don't go far. Monitor from a distance to ensure safety." I agreed, but my mind was in turmoil. This was it, justice for Evan, but also the moment I had to face the painful truth, betraying my wife's trust. That night, I lay awake beside Hannah. She slept soundly, curled up in the blanket, her breathing steady. I looked at her, my heart aching. "Hannah, The gentle woman who always believed in family would be shattered when she learned her parents were criminals. I wanted to hold her, tell her everything, but I couldn't. For Evan. For the years my family had suffered. Memories of my brother flooded back. Evan laughing and playing, teaching me to throw a ball. His words, "Do what needs to be done, Aiden." I clenched my fist, resolute. The next morning, I got up early as usual, kissed Hannah goodbye. "Have a good day at work? I'll be home early today." She smiled, suspecting nothing. "Okay, love. I'll cook your favorite tonight." Roger and Marlene greeted me from the breakfast table, their voices normal. "Have a good day, Aiden." I nodded, my heart feeling like it was being cut. I drove away from the house as usual, but actually just circled the neighborhood, parking on a distant corner, monitoring from afar to ensure Hannah wasn't there. My heart pounded, cold sweat breaking out despite the cool weather. I glanced at my watch, 8:45. Hannah drove out of the driveway, heading to the flower shop. I breathed a sigh of relief and texted Noah, "She's gone." Noah replied immediately, "Good. The task force is en route. Keep your distance." I sat in the car, eyes fixed on the familiar house, the place that had once been our cozy home, now about to become an arrest scene. Everything happened quickly. Around 9 a.m., the federal task force and Baton Rouge police surrounded the area discreetly. One group disguised themselves as utility workers, wearing uniforms, driving a white van with a fake logo, stopping at the gate, pretending to check the electric meter. Another group approached the garage and back door, moving stealthily through the neighbors' fences. I watched, my heart racing to the point of breathlessness. They were so professional that no one in the neighborhood suspected a thing. It seemed like just another ordinary day. Then the decisive moment arrived. Through the small binoculars Noah had given me, I saw Roger step out into the backyard to smoke, his morning habit. He was wearing an old robe, cigarette in hand, gazing at the blue sky without a clue. Suddenly, 2 agents burst from the bushes, shouting, "Roger Hayes, FBI! Hands up, don't move!" Roger startled, his eyes widening in terror, the cigarette dropping to the ground. He bolted toward the back door, but within seconds the agents subdued him, pinning him to the grass and cuffing him. "You're under arrest for money laundering, drug trafficking, and murder," one agent said loudly. Roger snarled, "You've got the wrong man." But it was futile. He was dragged away, his face pale. Meanwhile, inside the house, Marlene heard the commotion and panicked. Through the camera I had installed, she ran to the guest room, opened the old safe, trying to destroy the file, the money laundering documents and Evan's card. Her hands trembled as she pulled out the file, intending to burn it with a lighter, but before she could act, the room door burst open. Agents rushed in from the back door, shouting, "Marlene Hayes, hands up! You're under arrest!" She trembled, the file scattering, but was immediately overpowered, cuffed, and led out. "No, it wasn't me!" she cried, but the agents ignored her, collecting the safe as evidence. The entire operation took place in about 10 minutes, short, efficient, and absolutely precise. No gunshots, no chaos. The black vans carrying the suspects sped away, blending into traffic. The neighborhood remained peaceful, neighbors unaware. I drove back, parking in front of the house, my heart a mix of relief and anxiety. Noah stepped out from a nearby command vehicle, patting my shoulder. "Perfect, Aiden. The plan went off without a hitch. They'll be detained, awaiting trial." I nodded, my voice trembling. "Thanks, Noah. Now justice will come." I believed that justice would soon be served and my brother's death would not be in vain. But the one thing I worried about was how to explain it to my wife. Hannah would be devastated. That evening, Hannah came home earlier than usual, her face beaming with a bouquet from the shop. But when she opened the door and saw the empty house, she called, "Mom? Dad? Aiden?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, waiting. "Sit down," I said, my voice choked. I told her everything. About Evan being an undercover agent, about Hayes' group being involved in drugs, about the evidence and the arrest that morning. Hannah froze, her face turning pale, then burst into sobs, wailing, "It can't be! You're lying to me. My parents are innocent." She pounded my chest, accusing, "You called the police? You betrayed me. They're family." I held her, tears rolling down. "Love, I'm sorry. But for Evan, for the truth." Hannah cried until she was exhausted, slumping to the floor. I lifted her to the bed, my heart shattered. That night, the house was silent as a grave. That same evening, the media exploded with coverage. TV, radio, online news. Baton Rouge was in shock. The main headline, couple Roger and Marlene Hayes arrested after 3 years on the run. Prime suspects in drug trafficking, money laundering, and linked to the death of Agent Evan Mitchell. Reporters detailed, federal police raided a private home in the suburbs, capturing the 2 suspects who had faked their deaths in a fire. They were accused of running a drug network through Hayes Group and murdering Agent Evan Mitchell to silence him. Images of Roger and Marlene in handcuffs appeared on screen, followed by a photo of Evan, my brother in uniform, smiling brightly. I watched the news alone in the living room, staring numbly at my brother's face on the screen. For the first time in years, justice was finally naming the true culprits. 3 months after the arrest, the case of Roger and Marlene Hayes was officially brought to trial at the Federal Court of Louisiana. Those days, I lived as if in a hazy dream, where everything revolved around news reports and legal documents. Baton Rouge was swept into a relentless media whirlwind. Reporters stationed outside the courthouse, cameras flashing incessantly, and curious crowds gathering with banners reading "Justice for Evan Mitchell." Local press covered it extensively, from in-depth analyses of the Hayes Group empire to interviews with old witnesses. The case was considered one of the largest reopened investigations in recent years, involving money laundering, drug trafficking, and organized murder. It was not just the story of a family's collapse, but also evidence of the corruption in high society, where money and power concealed dark crimes. Every morning I opened the newspaper, reading sensational headlines. From luxury villa to prison, the tragedy of Hayes. Television interviewed legal experts, analyzed evidence, and the city's atmosphere was boiling. I received calls from reporters, but refused them all. I didn't want fame, just justice. I was invited to appear in court as a witness, providing internal evidence. On the first day of the trial, I drove to the courthouse under drizzling rain, my heart heavy as lead. The building was tall and stern, with cold granite columns, and the crowd outside made me push through to enter. I sat in the back row of the courtroom, wearing a clean but old shirt, my hands clenched to suppress trembling. The courtroom atmosphere was stuffy. The smell of polished wood, whispers from the crowd, and fluorescent lights shining down like judgment. When Roger and Marlene were led in, my heart tightened. The once arrogant father-in-law, with expensive suits and a sarcastic smile, now bowed his head in a gray prisoner uniform, hands cuffed, steps heavy. Marlene followed, thinner than ever, her white hair disheveled, eyes red from crying. I quietly watched them from the back row, my heart surging with conflict, pity for their downfall and rage for what they had done. Roger glanced at me briefly, his eyes full of regret and despair, but I turned away, not wanting to face him. This was the time for justice to speak. The prosecution presented the opening, the prosecutor's voice, a middle-aged man with a deep, strong voice, echoing in the silent room. "Your Honor, Roger Hayes ran a drug trafficking and money laundering network through Hayes Group. He used real estate projects as covers to hide millions of dollars from drug sales linked to international cartels. When Evan Mitchell, an undercover DEA agent, was exposed during the investigation, Roger Hayes ordered his elimination to cover tracks, staging a fake car accident scene. Marlene Hayes knew the full truth but helped her husband destroy evidence, staging a fire to fake their deaths and escape pursuit, living in hiding for many years." Those words cut into my heart like a knife, reminding me of the nights watching the camera, hearing their cold confessions. The crowd murmured. The judge banged the gavel for order. The prosecutor continued, presenting details, Fake invoices, shady transfers from offshore accounts, and contacts with Mexican drug suppliers. I sat silently, my mind swirling with memories. Evan had sacrificed to expose this, and now the truth was being revealed. All the evidence provided by me and Noah, videos, recordings, files, and access card, was publicly displayed in court, undeniable. The prosecutor turned on the projector, and the courtroom fell silent as the recording played. Roger's hoarse voice. We had to silence that agent Evan Mitchell. The crowd shuddered. Marlene covered her face and cried. Then the video of Roger opening the safe, muttering, "If anyone finds this stuff, we're done for." The money laundering files with the Hayes Group logo appeared on screen, numbers matching the data Evan collected before dying. The access card named Evan Mitchell, what he used to infiltrate the company, was enlarged, causing the courtroom to buzz. The defense lawyer tried to deny. This is just a misunderstanding. My client was forced by the cartels. But the prosecutor rebutted sharply. The evidence speaks for itself, from confessions to actual documents. I was called to the witness stand, my voice trembling as I recounted discovering them in the basement, installing cameras under Noah's guidance, and collecting data. I did it for my brother, I said, looking straight at the judge, my voice choked. The courtroom was silent, only Marlene's soft sobs. Roger remained silent throughout the trial, saying nothing, just sitting motionless like a stone statue, eyes downcast, avoiding all gazes. He didn't defend himself, didn't publicly regret, only a tired expression as if accepting fate. Marlene burst into tears when asked directly, "Did you know about the plan to kill Agent Mitchell?" She sobbed, admitting through tears, I knew. Roger ordered it, but I only helped destroy evidence because I was afraid of losing everything. We had no other choice. The courtroom erupted, the judge banging the gavel repeatedly for order. I sat there, witnessing, my heart calm but painful. This was justice, but also the end of a part of my life, the part tied to Hannah, to hopes of a happy family. Finally, after tense days of arguments, the court pronounced the verdict. The judge, voice stern, echoing in the silent room. After considering all evidence, the court sentences Roger Hayes to life imprisonment without parole for operating a drug network, money laundering, and first-degree murder. Marlene Hayes, 25 years in prison for complicity in concealing crimes. The courtroom buzzed, the crowd applauded, reporters rushed out to call in the news. Roger was led away, back hunched, still silent. Marlene cried hysterically, calling Hannah's name in despair. "Daughter, forgive your mother." I left the court, pushing through reporters surrounding me, asking, "Mr. Mitchell, how do you feel now that justice has been served?" I didn't answer, just drove home alone, heavy rain falling outside the window, cold like my heart. Leaving the court, I didn't feel relieved, only empty. Justice had been served, but in exchange, I lost almost everything. The peace of afternoon walks in the garden with Hannah, her trust when she learned I hid the plan, and the home once filled with laughter. Our house now felt cold, lacking her warmth, lacking the fresh bouquets she brought home. I sat at the kitchen table looking at the wedding photo on the wall, tears rolling down. Evan had been vindicated, but my life changed forever. From an ordinary husband to a lonely man amid painful memories. A few days later, Hannah sent the official separation papers through a lawyer. The letter arrived at home with a handwritten note. "Aiden, I can't bear the shock of knowing you were the one who reported, leading to my parents' arrest, even if they are criminals. I love you, but I need time to accept this truth. I'm sorry." I read it, my heart shattered, my hand trembling, holding the paper. Hannah, the gentle, skillful woman, always my support, now turned away because the pain was too great. She had lost her parents, even if they were guilty, and lost faith in me because I hid the evidence collection plan from her. I didn't blame her. I understood her pain, like the pain I experienced when losing Evan. She left Baton Rouge the following week, going to live with a friend in Lafayette, a small, peaceful town a few hours' drive away where she could start over. I helped her pack in silence, standing watching her car leave on the familiar street, my heart aching like it was cut. "I respect your choice," I said over the phone afterward, my voice choked. The following months were a lonely hell. The house empty, I lived like a shadow, coming home from work to cold dinners alone, watching TV to fill the void. My parents called to console. "You did the right thing, Aiden. Justice is more important than anything." But the longing for Hannah gnawed at me every night, dreams of her laughing, of evenings cuddling to sleep. Many months later, unexpectedly, Hannah returned. It was a gentle autumn afternoon, golden leaves falling all over the streets of Baton Rouge, a cool breeze carrying the damp earth smell. I was sitting in the backyard staring into space when I heard a soft knock on the door. Opening it, Hannah stood there, her face thinner than before, eyes red from crying, holding a bouquet of wildflowers, the kind I like. "Aiden, I want to talk." My heart pounded. I invited her in. We sat in the living room, the place that had witnessed so many painful events. After a long silence, Hannah spoke, her voice trembling, tears rolling down. "I visited Evan's grave. For the first time, I really went there, standing before his photo, reading the name etched on the stone. I read all the press about the case, heard all the evidence from the trial, my mother's confession, my father's money laundering documents. I understand clearly my parents' crimes. They weren't victims being hunted. They were the bad guys, killers covering up crimes. Looking at the photo of my husband's late brother, I burst into tears and apologized to you for not having the courage to face the truth from the beginning. I blamed you, but really I blame myself for being blind." Her tears fell profusely, her voice choked like bursting. I sat silently, my heart surging with emotions. Anger vanished, only pity and love remained. I said nothing, just held her hand tightly, feeling the familiar warmth return, our fingers clenching as if not wanting to let go. After the ordeal, we started over from the beginning, slowly, cautiously, but sincerely. Not rushing into each other immediately, but step by step, like rebuilding a ruined house. We talked every night, sharing pain. I told about Evan, about the memories he left. Hannah told about her parents, about her loss. We attended therapy together, learning to forgive and trust again. Hannah stayed at home, but we slept separately at first, respecting each other's space. Gradually, small gestures returned, a morning hug, cooking dinner together, an afternoon walk in the garden under the sun. Hannah sold the old flower shop in the center, reopened a smaller one in the suburbs, where the fragrance spread without reminding of the painful past. I still worked at the golf course, but now spent more time with each other. Weekends strolling the park, watching old movies, and cuddling to sleep without hidden secrets. The wounds healed gradually, like trees after a storm, sturdier, deeper roots. We learned to forgive. I forgave Hannah for being angry at me. She forgave me for hiding the evidence collection plan. Love returned, deeper, more authentic. 2 years later, Hannah gave birth to a baby boy named Evan as a way to remember the hero who sacrificed for justice. It was a warm spring day in Baton Rouge, golden sunshine shining brightly through the hospital window. Hannah held my hand in the delivery room, sweat dripping, her voice weak but joyful. "Honey, our son." Baby Evan was born with resounding cries, his tiny face rosy, bright, sparkling eyes like my brother back then. I cut the cord, tears rolling down from happiness and emotion, holding him in my arms. "Little Evan, you look so much like your uncle." Hannah held the baby, tired but with a radiant smile. "Named Evan, so he knows about his uncle, the hero who kept the world a bit cleaner." We brought him home, and from then on everything changed. The cries of a child filled the void. Laughter echoed, replacing sadness. Life returned to peace, but more meaningful than ever. I still worked at the golf course, mowing grass under the golden sun, fixing irrigation systems with a smile on my lips, and coming home earlier to play with the child. Hannah opened a small flower shop, fragrance spreading from the store to the backyard, where she planted vibrant bushes. The house that once witnessed crimes, the musty secret basement, sneaky nights full of suspicion. now overflowed with fragrance and laughter. Baby Evan's babbling da-da, running footsteps across the wooden floor, our playful sounds in the kitchen. Weekends we strolled the park, teaching the child to throw a ball like Evan taught me back then, and telling stories about Uncle Evan, the hero who sacrificed for justice. Justice had come, and love had healed all wounds. I looked at Hannah and the child, grateful to life. From the ashes of the past, we had built a bright future. But when sitting alone on the porch during those quiet evenings, gazing at the twinkling stars in the Louisiana sky, I often reflect on the long, arduous journey we've been through. My life, Aiden Mitchell, an ordinary golf course maintenance guy, had once been completely upended by dark secrets, painful losses, and ultimately the return of peace. Now that everything has settled, I want to share the messages, lessons, and advice I've drawn from this story. Not to complain or boast, but in the hope that someone reading these lines might find a bit of light in their own darkness. My life isn't a novel. It's real, full of tears and hope. And I believe what we've gone through can be a lesson for many. First and foremost, the biggest message I want to convey is, peaceful life is never eternal. And sometimes, the hidden secrets beneath can destroy everything if we don't have the courage to face them. Looking back, Hannah's and my life before everything happened was truly simple. Mornings with hot coffee, afternoons strolling in the garden, nights cuddling to sleep. But beneath that veneer was the secret basement. The nights Hannah sneaked down with food and the dark past of Roger and Marlene. I used to think peace was luck, but now I realize true peace only comes when we dare to flip over the dust-covered layers, facing the truth no matter how painful. This message isn't to scare, it's to remind that don't let uneasy intuitions pass without action. In my case, if I had ignored Hannah's sneaky nights, if I hadn't installed the camera, perhaps Roger and Marlene would still be evading and justice for Evan would be buried forever. Life turns in strange ways, but it's the courage to face it that brings genuine peace. From that journey, I've drawn many profound lessons, the first being about trust and suspicion in marriage. Hannah and I were once a happy couple without secrets, but when she hid her parents from me, that trust cracked. The lesson is, secrets, whether stemming from love or fear, are slow poison. Hannah hid because she feared I wouldn't agree, feared losing family. But that very concealment pushed us to the brink of divorce. I've learned that in marriage, absolute honesty is essential, even with painful truths. When Hannah returned, we promised each other, no more secrets. Every evening we sit and talk, sharing the smallest worries from work to dreams. This lesson not only saved our marriage, but made it stronger. Watching little Evan play, I think, he'll grow up in a family where truth is valued, not hidden. The second lesson is about justice and the power of perseverance. Evan, my brother, sacrificed for justice, and I once thought his death was a meaningless accident. But when I learned the truth, I realized justice doesn't come on its own. It requires action. I'm not a hero like Evan, just an ordinary guy, but by installing the camera, cooperating with Noah, I contributed to bringing the culprits to light. The lesson is, don't think you're too small to do anything. In a world full of injustice, each person can contribute a small corner to keep it cleaner, as Evan once said. I remember the sleepless nights pondering whether to report to the police or not, fearing losing Hannah. But perseverance won. The trial proved that. Now when teaching little Evan to throw a ball, I tell him about his uncle. Your uncle was a hero because he wasn't afraid to face the truth. This lesson reminds me that justice sometimes demands sacrifice, but it's worth it. Another lesson is about forgiveness and healing. After the case, Hannah was so angry she separated, and I was in pain I thought I couldn't overcome. But when she returned from Evan's grave, we learned to forgive each other, forgive the past. The lesson is, forgiveness isn't forgetting, but choosing love over resentment. We took 2 years to rebuild, through therapy, long conversations, and little Evan, a symbol of new hope. I've learned that wounds can heal if given time and love. Looking at Hannah now, smiling radiantly by her flower shop, I know, from pain we can bloom. And my advice from what we've gone through? First, trust your intuition. If something feels off, like Hannah's nights waking up, don't ignore it. I once thought it was just insomnia, but intuition signaled a secret. Advice: listen to it, investigate gently, but don't let suspicion destroy trust. Second, cherish family, but don't be blind. Hannah once didn't turn her back on her parents because of blood ties, but the truth proved true family brings peace, not crime. Advice: love, but be ready to face the truth if needed. Third, pursue justice, even if difficult. Like me with Evan, don't let loss be in vain. Advice: if you see injustice, act, cooperate with the law, because justice will come. Finally, heal with love. After the storm, we have little Evan. Advice: from ashes, rebuild with hope and forgiveness. My story ends here, but the message continues. Life is full of surprises, but with courage and love, we can overcome. Thank you for listening.